Hey guys, Dancy2, back with more Let's Play Golden Sun Dark Dawn at long last. Okay, so last time I said I was going to start forging up my forge materials, and I have done that off screen. So, obviously today we're going to go into exactly what I made. As well as pretty much everything else I could make because I had one of every item except for the dark matter. I'll go over the dark matter sort of today. There's a couple things, that definitely bear importance in terms of going over it in terms of certain long swords, but the first and foremost rule, no, if I don't have a weapon for somebody, it means their weapon is in a chest somewhere. Everyone else, I have their ultimate weapons for. Basically speaking, don't forge any weapons that I haven't forged already, if you're following me exactly, is what I'm trying to say here. So we're going to start with the Zol, and we're going to move on from there. First thing we can make is Zol rings. Yes, the item that we got before, we can remake with Zol now. It has the exact same stats as the original Zol ring. We can just make more of them. So it has an agility multiplier of 1.8, pretty fast ring, and it's the only ring in the game that we can get more than one of at a time. So if you need to flesh out your speed, it's probably the best thing to go with. There are other rings though, so it really is just a matter of how you want to do it and who you want to get, who you want to give the other rings to. I'll go over more once those rings become more important, or actually we get them. But for right now, I have not made any more Zol rings. I just have the one that Amati's had on him this whole time. So what did I actually make is the question. Well, the first thing I made was the Verdant Sword. Verdant Sword is Karis's best weapon in the game, in my opinion. Her and Amati kind of share an ultimate weapon that can replace either one of their two ultimate light blades. Sorry. Both her and Amati get two very good light blades, but they also have a bow that is available in post-game that can supplant either one. Personally, I advise giving it to Amati if you're going to give it to anyone. The problem is getting your weapon experience on the damn thing. Wait, no, that's not right. I'll go over to boots in a minute because they require their own explanation. But I just want to give this to Karis while I have the chance. So yeah, major increase to her. It has a lot of the unleashes. You're gonna notice this with your a lot of your ultimate weapons. It has a lot of unleashes from previous weapons. Gale Force, Vaporwell Slash, Mad Zephyr are all here, but also it has its own unleash, Emerald Blitz. Emerald Blitz has a chance to inflict Synergy Seal on the enemy, and it has a ×2 multiplier on it, plus being Jupiter Elemental, obviously. All of these unleashes are Jupiter to benefit from her Jupiter stat. So, yeah, it's basically her best sword in the game, in my opinion. You can't really do better than it. Next up is the Hover Greaves. Hover Greaves are very similar to the, what is it called? The Zol Ring. They have a 1.5 multiplier for their agility, and they also increase defense by 20, which is a pretty good amount, in all honesty. Now, these two Hover Greaves are for Elo and Tyrell. And I guess I should just give Elo his right now, but Tyrell's kind of full on inventory. So I can't exactly give him his without doing some mucking about. But yeah, a 1.5 agility multiplier and a good defense increase as well. Pretty good for these two guys, in all honesty. If you're wondering why I don't have one for Matt, well, one, I wanted to get the Zol ring. I mean, not the Zol ring. I wanted to get the Verdant blade for Karis before I got anything else. And honestly, here's the thing. It's a bit spoilerish right now, but two of the rings I get later on in the game are going to Elo and Tyrell. Matthew actually doesn't get a ring, so theoretically he's better off taking a Zol ring and then equipping one of the other boots we have access to, because it'll give him better defense. So that's why I don't have a pair for Matthew. He's actually better off sitting with the Silver Greaves because they give a slightly better defense boost. And the Zol ring will give him a slightly better speed multiplier. Now, if you noticed, I've moved my spiked armor over to Matthew from Tyrell. That's because Tyrell's holding all of my Mythril silver gear, so we're going to get into that right away now. Actually, before we get into Mythril silver gear, I should probably go over what else we can do with Zol, because, you know, what else am I going to do it? Aside from the three things I showed, which was the Verdant Sword, the Zol ring, and the Hover Greaves, we can also make two other items. The first one is the Zol Tiara. It is a circlet item. It can only be equipped by females, and aside from its defense boost, it raises Jupiter resistance by 30. It's at best. And the Jinn are going to do this while I talk, because they come out if I leave the screen alone for 5 seconds, as you've seen. But yeah, the Zoltiara is really especially since, if you haven't noticed, our female population isn't exactly inspiring. And honestly, even the people who can equip it, they have better options, like vastly better options. Luckily, the last item, the Air Bangle, is pretty much the exact opposite of this. It is a bracelet item, raises defense by 39, and Jupiter by 30. And what Jupiter? Jupiter power by 30. I'm sorry, I'm running over my words today again. But here's the real kicker. That would be a good item in its own right. That's essentially the Lydia's bracelet from Lost Age. But here's the kicker. Even though it's a bracelet item, it can be equipped by all of our adepts. It is not restricted to any class or anything. Everyone can equip it. That is actually a really good notch in its belt because it gives it versatility across all of our characters. And the 30 Jupiter power is massive. I will be picking up one of these for Karis in the endgame because she is going to be my Tri-Elemental. So she is going to need a little bit of Jupiter power boost. And really, it's one of the best in the game for her. So I will be picking up an Air Bangle eventually. I'll tell you when I make it. But for the most part, I'm going to be going after speed boosting items. Anyway, aside from that, well, not aside from that, now that we're done with that, damn it, Dan, get your words right, let's move over to Tyrell. I am doing horrible at this. Give me a second while I get my Mythril Silver in order. Alright, on to Mythril Silver. So, here's the thing about Mythril Silver, and starting from here, you're going to notice, because from here on out, all of our forging material is returning material. But you're going to notice something really big, and that is a lot of our forging material has significantly less options than in Lost Age, unfortunately. Most specifically, with the two Mythril Silvers I got the Mythril Clothes and the Levantine. First off, the Mythril Clothes. Once again, a returning item from Lost Age. A very good item in Lost Age. Works just as well here. And we're going to get a whole lot more Mythril Silver, which means a whole lot more crit boosting and a whole lot more fun. Essentially, what Mythril Clothes does, it's a defense of plus 90, plus 49, as you can see. I don't even know why I'm saying that, because you guys can see it right there on the screen. But yeah, and it raises our critical percentage by 15. That's a pretty good percent. It is one of the best, it's one of the most available crit boosting gear, and it's a very good piece of crit boosting gear as well. Not only that, but it can be equipped by everyone in the game because it's just basic clothing. It's not the best defense in the world, but it can more than make up for it in offensive potential. Now, you're probably wondering, Dan, why the heck did you get the Levantine? Well, back in Lost Age, I said that the Levantine is a sword that is moderately lackluster. It's like another, in that game, it's like another version of the Firebrand that isn't an elemental blade or an elemental weapon and doesn't really have anything to make it stand out. However, in this game, it comes back with a vengeance. This thing is one of what is considered to be Tyrell's 3 ultimate weapons. If not by me, then by the general Golden Sun consensus, from what I can tell. I don't mean to speak for everyone here, but this is what I've generally understood by looking at stuff, is that it's one of 3 weapons. The other 2 being 2 other longswords, the 2 other forgeable longswords in the game, which is the Excalibur and the Dark Sword. Now, really, which of the 3 blades you choose for him to use is just a combination of whether you want good crits or good, or not good crits, good unleashes. It's basically the same thing, but I want to be specific here. Whether you want good unleashes or good attack power. The Levantine is the weakest of the 3 blades, but it has the best of the unleashes. The Levantine actually only has 3 unleashes. This is a beneficial thing, oddly enough, because it helps eliminate lesser unleashes and gives more good ones. First unleash it has is actually its only lesser one, in my opinion, which is critical move. It's non-elemental times 1.4 damage. It's okay. It's the beginning of the move game. Can't really complain. It's the only one that's bad on it. Aside from that, it has the 2 other unleashes it has are very, very good. Both of them actually can ignore 50% of the target's defense, which is an oddly specific thing for them both to have in common, but they have it in common. The first one is Centurion. It is a Jupiter Elemental Unleash that has a 2.4 damage multiplier. It's pretty powerful. Honest to God, it's going to be a staple of our endgame arsenal because a lot of our endgame weapons have it. We haven't actually found the weapon that has it as a signature unleash yet, which is odd because now we have it as a lesser unleash. But there is a weapon later on that will have it as a signature before, you know, it becomes a lesser unleash on a lot of our endgame. Aside from that, the third unleash is Radiant Fire, returning ability from the previous game, and its signature ability. Radiant Fire has a 66 damage increase that is Mars Elemental, but its real power is that it can hit multiple targets. Once again, ignoring that 50% damage when it does so, or ignoring 50% of defense. Ignoring 50% of damage would be a bad thing, but it ignores defense, which is a good thing. So yeah, it's a pretty versatile move and helps with general just mobbing combat, I guess is the best way to put it, even though I'm not sure if you could classify it as mobbing in this game. But yeah, just general running around combat, it's a pretty good unleash to have. That combined with Centurion for boss killing, and this blade is pretty nice. Overall, I think this combined with the pretty good damage it has, honestly. 173 is nothing to sneeze at in this game. We don't really have a lot that's going to beat it out. And due to the fact that we're just generally strapped for weapons in general, I think my choice here is pretty self-explanatory. Now that being said, I'll go over the Dark Sword and the Excalibur in time, but I don't think they're as good for Tyrell in a general purpose sense. Levantine just has better general... I said general a whole lot. It has more diversity in it than the other two swords, and the other two swords have issues. Now you're probably wondering, what else can I make with Mythril Silver? The answer is not a lot. The only other thing I'd say worth noting is the Mythril Armlet. Now I will go over the two weapons in short order, but the Mythril Armlet bears a special mention because it's the best armlet for mages to raise their crit boosting with now. It has a plus 46 to defense and a crit and unleash rate boost by 10%. This is very important to note because the Riot Gloves do not make a return appearance in this game. Before, Riot Gloves were a plus 25 and plus 20% to attack and criticals respectively to any character. It was borderline broken, and I for one could not be more glad that they took it out of this game in all honesty. The Mythril Armlet is way more viable in this game as a result. Before, it was really just an inferior version of the Riot Gloves, but now it can actually be used with some amount of decency in your mind. That being said, I don't know how much decency you could get with the amount of brokenness that the Riot Gloves had, but it is worth noting here that they're not back. You cannot get them, and the Mythril Armlet is your only piece of arm gear that you can use to raise your mage's your mage's unleash rate. God. Aside from that, though, you have two other weapons that we can get with the Mythril Silver. Both of them are kind of The first one is the Silver Longbow, and the second one is the Mythril Claw. The Silver Longbow, in all honesty, is almost useless. I would much rather recommend the Verdant Sword for Karis, and Amity is going to get his ultimate weapon in relatively short order. There's not much that it can really do. The only other one is the Mythril Claw. Now, the Mythril Claw actually ties with Sevita's ultimate weapon, or what I consider to be one of her ultimate weapons, in terms of attack power. It has different unleashes, and the unleashes have different elements to them, so if you want to use it, it is viable, but I would not waste a Mythril Silver on it. That being said, I will have an extra Mythril Silver by the time this is all said and done, because I kind of use one as a placeholder gear. So if you want to swap out what I use as a placeholder for the Mythril Claw, that's more than viable. I just don't like to do it. For many reasons, the most of which being, I just don't see a value in it, especially when I'm going to get her ultimate equipment in short order. Once again, repeating myself. But I think I made a point here that aside from the Levantine, the weapons for the Mythril Silver are only at best and horrible at worst. Well, not horrible, just useless placeholders. Anyway, last up in order is our Orichalcum, the single piece we got, and Elo has it because he needs it. Now, if you're wondering why he needs it, it's because it's the single best axe in the game, the Herculean axe, the only new piece of equipment that the Orichalcum can make. It's a relatively good weapon, with, once again, just like the Verdant Blade, having a bunch of returning unleashes from various axes in the game, kind of showing it as the ultimate axe in the game as a result, with Stone Justice, Barrage, Meltdown, and its own signature unleash, Olympus Rage. Now, most of the unleashes for the Herculean axe are exactly the same as they were before. With Meltdown being able to hit multiple targets, and Barrage being able to inflict stun, and Stone Justice having its agility drop, it serves as a relatively versatile stat dropper at the very least. But Olympus Rage is where it really gets its power. It has a ×2 multiplier and converts all your damage to Mars. Now, alongside that, it can also instantly kill targets. It's a fairly good weapon. Its only real downside is just the sheer number of unleashes it has. And if he had other options, I would actually suggest giving him another Levantine instead. But the problem is he can't actually equip longswords. As a result, Herculean Axe basically becomes his signature weapon. There's no reason to have him not have it. And I've seen some people run him with a mace later in the game, but it's just not worth it in my honest opinion. Herculean Axe is way more powerful, way more versatile, and just gets the job done. And it's... except for Stone Justice, all of its unleashes are Mars-based, so it really does fit Elo a little bit better. Aside from Herculean Axe, however, there are exactly 4 other weapons we can make. Or not weapons, items. There's actually only one other weapon, which is the Excalibur. The Excalibur is nowhere near the powerhouse it used to be. It still has its signature Unleashed Legend, which has the ability to triple its damage as well as adding damage to it, making it one of the most powerful weapons in the game. However, it only has a chance to triple its damage, and the fact of the matter is, it has 4 Unleashes. Now, all these Unleashes are Jupiter-based, but without a Jupiter adept that can actually wield it, you can't max out its damage potential. At least not easily. I believe with some weird combination of items, you might be able to get it to 200 elemental power, but it's not going to be easy, and I don't even know if it's possible. Because I don't know if there's any armors that will increase it. But the main issue here is actually its Unleashes. The first 2 Unleashes are garbage. Once again, critical move returns of a 1.5 multiplier, and it's okay at best. It also has rolling attack, which is a Jupiter 1.1 multiplier. That's a bad sign right there. When you have 2 beginning of the game moves at the beginning of your list, that's not a good sign. Last 2 moves are Skydiver and the signature Unleash. Skydiver increases damage by 66 Jupiter. It's not great. It can inflict stun. Sometimes, maybe, if it wants to. And Legend returns as the badass that it is, with the ability to triple damage as well as adding damage to it. The problem is that triple is not guaranteed, so you not only have to run the gambit of activating your Unleash, activating the correct Unleash, and then hitting that triple. It's not great, and honestly, it's the reason why I don't go with this sword. There's a bunch of problems with it, and it really did take the biggest hit in terms of the endgame weaponry. A lot of our other endgame weaponry actually gets upgrades in this game, as we saw with the Levantine. But Excalibur got major downgrades, and it is just a pathetic sham of what it used to be. Now, I should note here that the Excalibur actually has... it's kind of the middle of the road in terms of power. It's not as powerful as the Dark Sword, obviously, but it's not as weak as the Levantine. However, with only 7 damage more, it's barely stronger than the Levantine, and as a result, I cannot recommend it. I really can't. Aside from that, the 3 other equipment that we can make with the Orichalcum are all returning equipment, as I've said before. They are the Big Bang Gloves. This is, honest to God, if you're not going to make the Herculean Axe, I would advise making these. Defense boost of plus 47 and a Mars power boost of plus 40. This thing is crazy. These are the only real gloves that could compete with the Riot gloves back in the day, and they show their worth here. Mars power boost of 40 is great. It is huge, and really, I'm probably going to strap it to Elo as soon as I get more Orichalcum, but once again, can't get it till the end of the game. Can only get 1. So make your choice wisely. End of discussion. Aside from that, we have the Xylon Armor and the Cosmos Shield. Once again, both returning items. The Xylon Armor will increase your attack power by 12, and Cosmos Shield will give you a plus 20 to all resistances, which is actually pretty good. They're both decent equipment, although I would definitely say the Herculean Axe and the Big Bang Gloves are definitely your first 2 choices here. What you do from beyond there is up to you. Anyway, that's about it. I'm gonna have to go edit this nightmare together, but before I do that, let's go over to Dark Matter, because I would rather get this out of the way than wait for it. Okay, so the Dark Matter is actually a fairly interesting item in this game because it can only be found after the end of the game. It can be forged into 3 items. The Dark Sword, as I've brought up before, the Demon Circlet, and the Terra Shield. Let's start off with the Dark Sword. The Dark Sword, in terms of attack damage, is actually the most powerful sword in the game. It has a 210 attack boost, which is kind of crazy, considering the Excalibur only had 180. Aside from this, it's okay in terms of unleashes. Really, they're horrible. They're horrible. Just end of discussion. Only one of them has a multiplier on it, and it's a 1.3. Overall, unless you're going for a quick strike build, I wouldn't use this sword. If you are going for a quick strike build, then you can find no better sword than this sword. So, use it if you need it. Otherwise, leave it in the dust. It's not all that great. Aside from that, let's look at the other 2. First off is the Demon Circlet. Demon Circlet is actually a decent piece of equipment because it's one of the only ways that you can get a reproducible Unleash boosting gear for a head equipment slot. Because the Mythril Silver obviously goes for the other 2 slots, which is body and arm, but for head equipment, you can't really get another piece. It's kind of interesting. It has this weird niche, in my opinion, and it's definitely got a place in my build. And it's definitely something I'm going to be going after once I get my, once I actually get some dark matter. If you want actual stats, it increases your unleash rate by 15% and your defense by 50, which is actually pretty big for a piece of headgear. Aside from that, we have the Terra Shield, which will increase attack by 5 and defense by 48. Yes, the shield increases your defense less than the circlet. I don't know. Honest to God, the Terra Shield is in my opinion. I suppose if you're going for a quick strike build, then your ideal would be Terra Shield, Xylon Mail, and then something to increase your attack damage on your helm, as well as the Dark Sword, so you can make the most use of all of your cursed equipment. But even then, I don't know. I'm not going for a quick strike build. I guess that's the best idea I can come up with off the fly. But that's basically, other than that, I don't see a use for the Terra Shield. I definitely don't use it myself. But that's all the dark matter can actually forge. It's kind of pathetic, honestly. To be fair, it can only be gotten after the end of the game, so hit or miss, whatever you want. And that's it for forging material. That is literally it. I will tell you what I make when I make it, but I won't be going over it, so this is the this is the depository for all information regarding forging material from here on out. I'm going to go try and edit this mess together and see if we have any time left over to do anything in this episode, so give me a minute. Okay, yeah, at 26 minutes, I think we're done here. Sorry for this really talky episode, guys. I just wanted to burn this all out of the way at one time. So, next time we'll actually do some stuff, and hopefully I'll have edited this together to be at least somewhat respectable. I know I tripped over my words a lot. I apologize. I hope I got all the information out there that you needed to make informed decisions as far as what stuff you should be using and why I'm using the ones that I should. Or the ones that I am. I can't even do my outro correctly. God! Hopefully I'll be better next time. See you guys then.